Hello everyone! Today we are going to venture into the heart of one of the Earth's most powerful and awe-inspiring forces, the volcano. We are going to answer the questions: what is a volcano? How do volcanoes affect people? And how do we stay safe? So, let's get started. Firstly, what is a volcano? You have probably seen incredible images of volcanoes erupting around the world. But do we understand why volcanoes occur? Let's look at this diagram. So, this diagram shows all the different parts of a volcano. Please label them on your worksheet as we go. We start deep beneath the Earth's surface, where the magma chamber lies. Here, incredibly hot rock called magma is stored under immense pressure. Over time, pressure builds beneath the Earth's surface, causing hot magma to rise. It pushes upwards through a narrow passage called a vent. This slow, steady movement is powered by the intense forces inside our planet. The magma eventually reaches the very top of the volcano. This is the crater. From this opening, magma bursts into the air. This event is called an eruption. An eruption is both awe-inspiring and dangerous. Ash clouds are hurled into the sky. Once magma bursts out and reaches the Earth's surface, it is called lava. The lava flows, glowing red hot, down the sides of the volcano. As it cools, it hardens into rock. This process slowly creates new land, reshaping the landscape over time. This remarkable process has been happening for millions of years, all over the world. It is part of the dynamic, ever-changing story of our planet. Now, there are 3 types of volcanoes in the world: active, dormant, and extinct. But today, we're focusing on active volcanoes because they are the most powerful and the most dangerous. Active volcanoes are volcanoes that have erupted in the last 11,700 years, are currently erupting, or have potential to erupt in the future. Think of them as wide awake, capable of erupting at any time. Lava, ash, and gas can suddenly explode from the crater. Famous active volcanoes include Mount Etna in Italy, which erupts nearly every year, and Mount St. Helens in the United States, which experienced volcanic activity from 1980 until 2008. That's nearly 30 years of constant activity. Even though dormant and extinct volcanoes also shape our planet, active volcanoes are the ones we must prepare for because they affect people's lives today. These days, volcanoes cause massive problems. In many countries, when a volcano erupts, homes and farms are destroyed, people must leave their homes, roads and airports are closed, and the economy of the area is hurt. So, people who live near volcanoes must learn to live with them and respect their power. Let's go over some important safety tips. Firstly, before an eruption, stay informed. Listen to the news or local warnings. Make an emergency kit with water, food, a flashlight, and masks. Then, during an eruption, stay inside. This helps you stay safe from ash and lava. Also, wear a mask to protect your lungs from ash. After an eruption, do not walk or drive through the ash, and try to help others if it is safe. Volcanoes are powerful, but if we prepare, we can stay safe. And now it's your turn. You will pretend to be a news reporter. You will report on a volcanic eruption. You can use a real volcano or make one up. Use the worksheet to help you write your report. The report should include a headline, the main report, what caused the eruption, what happened after, and safety instructions like stay inside, wear a mask, evacuate now. Here's an example. The headline can be, breaking news, volcano erupts in Iceland. Residents urged to take action. The reporter says, a powerful eruption has just occurred in Iceland. Ash and lava are spreading quickly. Homes and roads are covered. People must act now. Stay inside, wear a mask, evacuate if you are near the volcano. So, for this activity, please work with a partner or by yourself. You will write your script, then practice presenting your news report. Use the worksheets to help you write your report. Now, practice your report by yourself or in pairs. You will get 5 minutes to rehearse. Then, we'll have our news broadcast. Come to the front and present your volcano report to the class. Try your best to speak clearly and confidently. Have fun with it. Let's review what we learned today. Volcanoes are mountains that erupt with magma, ash, and gas. They can be active, dormant, or extinct. They greatly impact people's lives. We can stay safe by preparing and following safety rules. Thank you for joining this volcano adventure. Stay curious and stay safe. Bye-bye!